Batman and Spider Man are two of the most iconic characters in all of fiction, and both of which have some of the best video games in the entire superhero genre, with the Arkham games and the Insomniac games being some of my favorite of all time. And typically because these two series are seen as titanic powerhouses in the superhero video game genre, they get a lot of comparison, whether it be for sales, MC, side characters, or which one is just straight up the better game. So I wanted to see who would win a fight between these two titans of gaming. For this, I'll be using all their mainline games and any possible comics that can be used as evidence to supplement their scaling. I'll be going over all the important scaling both these characters have in their games by essentially going through each and every one of their mainline series. So with all that being said, let's get into it. I think it only makes sense to start with Arkham Batman first. Not only was he the first, but I think his scaling would be the more simplistic to go over. Arkham Batman is a character that's typically presented as peak human, even though the shit he tends to pull off is more superhuman in his nature. He's shown the ability to not only dodge, but consistently tank bullets from weapons such as handguns and automatic assault rifles and shotguns. He's shown the ability to tear cars in half, which would require around 16 to 20 tons of force. He's also fought and beaten characters like Bane, who can lift and throw cars over their heads with ease. Bane in the Arkhamverse is a person who has canonically fought with titans. And even by his own admission, he has said that the only person he has fought who was harder than a titan was Batman himself, which would make sense considering in Arkham Asylum we do fight titans pretty regularly and Batman does beat them on the casual. Arkham Batman is so durable that he's been able to survive building level explosions right on his head. He's been able to withstand the full brunt of Electrocutioner's electric gloves, which would normally send a normal person into cardiac arrest, stopping their heart, and being able to tank large building levels to multi-building level explosions in the comics. Bane has also beat up and slammed Batman through thick walls in Arkham Origins, just reinforcing this building level durability that Batman has. In that same game, Arkham Origins, he was also able to fight off and beat Killer Croc, a man who was able to tear through the walls of Blackgate Prison. Throughout the Arkham franchise, we actually see Batman fight and beat Killer Croc a few times in Arkham Origins, Asylum, and Night, and in all three cases he beats him quite relatively quickly. This is even supported by the comics where he was able to do judo throws and beat him up for a while in the comics. Waylon Jones is a character that actually weighs over 1,000 pounds if you read his autobiography in Arkham City, which is pretty consistent for Batman, this 1,000-pound range. Killer Croc, much like Batman, is also an opponent capable of tanking explosions and bullets straight to his face, and we even see Batman outspeed Waylon Jones in Arkham Asylum. This feat is even more impressive when you realize that Killer Croc was essentially in what was his biological habitat, meaning Batman essentially outsped Waylon Jones in a place that gave him a biological and speed advantage. In Arkham Asylum, it is actually stated that Batman trained his body to what would have essentially been the equivalent of physical human perfection. In Batman Arkham City, it's stated that Batman mastered every single form of martial arts on planet Earth. Batman's durability would also scale far above the Joker, who we've seen actually survive crazy stuff like falling from the top story of a skyscraper in a helicopter, and that said helicopter exploding on impact. For the variety of martial arts previously mentioned, the list of abilities and fighting styles he has consists of but are not limited to Boryaku, Shaitenteki Kyoyo, Taijutsu, Toriyaku Ryu, Boxing, Muay Thai, Shuriken Jutsu, Taijutsu, Inton Iri, Shinobi Iri, Kali, Taekwondo, Kapura, pro wrestling, and parkour. And to be honest, the list just keeps going. He has mastered every single form of martial arts on planet Earth. By the way, disclaimer, I apologize if I butchered any of those names. I am very American, so I know I likely did butcher a name here and there. All this goes to show us that this is just a fraction of the martial arts that Bruce has mastered here and there throughout the years as Batman. And this isn't even accounting for his intellect, considering he knows the equivalent of 12 PhDs worth of knowledge, and is considered smarter than the likes of the Riddler, a super genius by the way, capable of building elaborate death traps throughout the entirety of Gotham on multiple occasions. Arkham Batman has also shown the capability of taking on dozens of criminals all at once, with even real-life martial artists in our real world only being able to take on 2 or 3 before they inevitably get overwhelmed. Batman in his early years has fought the likes of Lady Shiva while being severely outnumbered, and according to the Batman Arkham databases, Lady Shiva is considered to be unparalleled in the art of hand-to-hand combat, and like a fine wine, Batman only gets better with age. He's also beaten the likes of Deathstroke in his early years in Arkham Origins, a superhuman by the way. And if Deathstroke's words later on in Batman Arkham Knight are to be believed, Jason Todd, or the Arkham Knight himself, later stated that he was the toughest opponent that Batman ever faced, this same Deathstroke that Batman actually one-shotted later on in Arkham Knight. He's also shown the ability to beat characters like Catwoman, a person with unparalleled stealth capabilities according to the Arkham database, while having no eyesight on some Daredevil level shit. Batman would also comfortably scale above the entirety of the Bat family, all expert tacticians, martial artists, and combatants in of themselves. This can also be supported considering in the latter half of Batman Arkham Knight, Batman in the Nightmare sequence actually confirms that no member of the Bat family would have been able to actually stop him in a Joker-possessed state. He's also shown the ability to beat Tim Drake in a Poison Ivy-possessed and possibly enhanced state, has snuck around and incapacitated the likes of Jason Todd. Keep in mind, Jason Todd is not only a skilled marksman in of himself with possibly his own version of detective vision, but he also had a lot of that coveted prep time that Batman typically tends to get memed on about. Jason Todd essentially boxed Batman into a tiny room, brought an entire army of men with guns, camouflage, and anti-Batman gear, and he still ended up losing. In Batman VR, Batman would actually suffer an hallucination where he ends up fighting Dick Grayson in an hallucination sequence, and in this same hallucination sequence he disregards his no-killing rule in which he imagines himself killing Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson was stated by Batman himself to be the greatest prodigy he's ever taught, and second only to him, meaning even in the best case scenario, Batman believes Dick Grayson, a man with not only intimate knowledge of Batman's fighting style, but a prodigy in of himself, can beat him in a serious fight. Batman's mental endurance is also nothing to be scoffed at considering he was able to survive Scarecrow's scare toxin from the Cloudburst. He's able to put his body in a state of suspended animation for multiple days on end. Keep in mind, Scarecrow's scare toxin is actually meant to dig deep into the psyche of his victims, finding their deepest, darkest fear and using that against them, meaning Batman, even while getting his mind probed, still somehow finds the will to fight through it and beat his adversaries. One of the more insane things Batman has ever done is when you realize that the Nightfall ending in Arkham Knight can only be unlocked after beating every one of Batman's rogues, meaning he beat the likes of Riddler, the Penguin, Two-Face, Scarecrow, the Arkham Knight, all within the span of one night, meaning every main mission, side mission, challenge mission, Riddler trophies, and DLC was done within the span of only 12 hours. Batman has also shown immense knowledge and intellect, being proficient in multiple fields of study like criminology, and this is shown considering he's been able to break down highly complicated crime scenes. Batman's cowl can also be used to track down trace particles of highly complicated compounds in the air, as seen in Arkham Asylum for example when he uses it to track down Warden Sharp. His equipment consists of a variety of weapons such as a remote control batarang that can be used to either incapacitate his opponents with an electric shock or damage them with a seismic wave, a highly efficient gas-proof mask that allows him to ward off most toxins and poisons, his infamous explosion gel that's capable of hurting beings like Bane and Killer Croc, people who we've previously established have building level to multi-building level durability, multiple flashbang grenades and smoke bombs, an internal disruptor capable of disarming firearms, and even more advanced technology like Mr. Freeze's freeze cannon. This disruptor can also be used to disable a long variety of weapons such as sentries, stun batons, mines, medical personnel, camouflage otherwise invisible to the likes of Detective Vision jammers, drones, and entire tanks, a remote electric charge gun that can stun opponents or power machinery, his hacking tool that he can use to disable a variety of weaponry like the militia tanks in Arkham Knight, a voice synthesizer capable of replicating the voice of anyone he puts into the device, and of course most famously one of the most controversial additions to the Arkham series, the Batmobile itself. The Batmobile is essentially just a force of nature that barrels through most obstacles with no difficulty, reaching a top speed of 272 miles per hour, or essentially 80% the speed of sound. A 60mm cannon capable of eviscerating militia tanks with no difficulty, and the Batmobile in of itself being durable enough to actually take on an entire platoon of militia tanks. An anti-tank Vulcan cannon armed with incendiary rounds. Dozens of homing missiles capable of locking onto any target he sees necessary with the utmost accuracy. non-lethal riot suppressant gear, and a high voltage current running around the car, making it virtually untouchable. The Batmobile is also capable of filtering out any harmful gas from getting to the vehicle's occupant, as seen in Arkham Knight when even Scarecrow's scare gas couldn't get through the vehicle's natural defenses. A built-in EMP that can be used to shut down any nearby technology or weaponry that can be used to harm the vehicle's occupant. Batman has consistently dodged bullets from handguns, shotguns, assault rifles, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, and even attack helicopters. And with his new suit, the Fear multi-takedown allows him to take down entire rooms of enemies with guns after the bullets have been fired, which shouldn't even be logically possible by our real-world standards. He would also scale above the likes of Deadshot, who was able to react to bullets being fired right in front of his face, and even scaling above a young Jason Todd, who was able to dodge minigun fire. All of these feats can comfortably get Arkham Batman to around Mach 5. But in closing, Arkham Batman is a completely deadly foe and absolutely broken. His building level durability and AP would make him pretty tough to fight, and his Mach 5 speed would make him a complete nightmare to go up against. But how does the lovable web head from New York compare to this absolute monster?
Fisk.
Insomniac Spider Man, better known as PlayStation Spider Man, is capable of pulling off some pretty insane feats like dodging bullets after they're fired, being able to catch and throw cars over his head with no difficulty whatsoever, being able to tank attacks from the likes of Martin Lee, who can destroy multiple stories of a New York skyscraper. He's tanked being knocked through a vault door, which would require around 38,000 to 40,000 pounds per square inch of force. He's shown the ability to hold up entire cranes, and the type of crane we see in the game seems to be a hydraulic car crane, which would require around 67,527 pounds of lifting force, or the equivalent of over 33 tons. He's shown the ability to lift up entire portions of building near the beginning half of the first game, and even scaling above the likes of an inexperienced Miles Morales, who can hold major parts of the Brooklyn Bridge. Both Peter and Miles have shown the ability to move and flip around trains, which can weigh around 20 to 44,000 pounds, or the equivalent of around 10 to 22 tons. Spider-Man, throughout the course of the Insomniac games, has shown that he's really talented in multiple forms of martial arts like wrestling, grappling, and gymnastics. He's shown pretty impressive feats like hitting a thug with enough force to actually send them flying. He's been able to actually beat the likes of Mr. Negative, who can actually go into your mind and use your own thoughts against you in a fight. The illusions that Mr. Negative creates are actually so real that some characters can physically feel themselves being hit, and he can even take over the bodies of individuals. Spider-Man broke out of the hold of the same Martin Lee, who was considered to be a master of the mind within about a couple seconds. He's shown the ability to lift up entire semi-trucks from the ground ultra casually. Spider-Man's webs have also been shown to be durable enough to lift up the entire weight of a 10,000 pound helicopter. Insomniac Spider Man has actually been shown to be quick enough to catch up to Marvel's speedsters and tank entire rocket launchers. Peter's intellect has also been shown to be off the charts, considering he's developed stuff like anti-gravity webs by himself with no funding. Spider-Man has actually shown the ability to tank attacks from the likes of Electro, whose lightning beams can actually destroy entire portions of buildings and disrupt entire helicopters. And thanks to his spidey sense, he's actually shown the ability to dodge rocket launchers and machine gun fire right in front of his face. This would put Spider-Man's casual speed around Mach 4 to Mach 5. He's also physically superior to the likes of Rhino, who can tear up entire city blocks simply by running. Insomniac Spider-Man will also scale to the likes of 616 Superior Spider-Man, considering they fought in a canon crossover. 616 Spider-Man is capable of pulling off impressive feats like taking down and beating up every member of the Sinister Six and almost killing them. He was also capable of taking down the Green Goblin and has his own suit that is technologically enhanced. And this scaling would track, considering Insomniac Spider-Man was able to take down his version of the Sinister Six within about 1 to 2 weeks canonically. Mind you, Insomniac Spider-Man got jumped by his version of the Sinister Six prior to capturing them, meaning he likely had multiple concussions and broken bones while he was doing this. Peter has also shown the ability to smack around and beat up Kingpin, essentially hitting him through multiple stories of Fisk Tower. Keep in mind, Wilson Fisk is actually a superhuman combatant, actually able to launch Spider-Man through multiple stone pillars and launch boulders at him. But even with that, the difference in the physical stats are so great that it's been compared to the likes of an adult man versus a 3-year-old toddler. He's also shown the ability to beat and damage Hammerhead while wearing super advanced Sable technology. Hammerhead, another superhuman combatant that was able to survive multiple helicopter explosions right in front of his face. To reinforce this line of scaling, in Spider-Man Miles Morales, the Rhino was actually able to tank an entire power plant exploding right in his face, and by virtue Peter and Miles were able to, considering they were in close proximity with him. And due to his Spidey sense, he's capable of taking on multiple of these superhuman combatants like Rhino and Scorpion and Electro and the Vulture. Peter was also able to swing around and smack Sandman in the face with a water tank, which can weigh around 100 to 150 tons. This same Sandman is capable of launching Miles Morales multiple districts away, and he's capable of returning in about a few seconds. This would require around speed comparable to Mach 8.
You okay? I'm working on it.
Miles himself, a character who Peter directly scales to, has been able to tank some pretty crazy shit, like an explosion that was capable of destroying the entirety of Harlem. Harlem is around 3.6 kilometers in size, so an explosion capable of destroying the entirety of Harlem would need a yield comparable to a small nuke or around large town level. He's shown relativity to the likes of the Lizard, who's shown the ability to cross from Queens all the way to mainline Manhattan within a couple minutes, showing this massively hypersonic range is very consistent for Spider-Man. And much like Rhino before him, the Lizard is capable of tearing through multiple city blocks with the utmost ease. Peter has also beaten the likes of Dr. Otto Octavius, not only a superhuman but a super genius. This same Doc Ock likely knows Peter or Spider-Man better than any other foe in his rogues gallery, and Doc Ock's suit actually even works against Spider-Man's natural powers. It's to the point that Spider-Man had to make an anti-Ock suit to even begin to hurt the dude. Now, for those who want to mention it, because I know there will likely be those who do mention it, if you're wondering why I didn't bring up Symbiote Spider-Man up until now, it's like, come on. Be for real? Symbiote Spider-Man is not only much stronger, faster, and durable, he's also resistant to the majority of things Batman has, like fire and electricity, so his incendiary rounds won't work, and his electric batarangs likely also won't work. Not only that, but with the suit, Peter's also naturally bloodlusted, so any qualms he would have had with killing Bruce immediately get thrown out the window. What's even crazier is when you realize Peter himself didn't even get to reach the full potential of Venom, because in the latter half, and spoilers for the latter half of Spider-Man 2, Harriet Osborn actually becomes Venom, and after he does, he just straight up becomes an Avengers level threat. In the span of about a few seconds, Venom was actually able to use his symbiote powers to infect the entirety of New York, eclipsing infrastructure and turning everybody around him into symbiotes. And the symbiote suit actually enhances his natural healing factor, even more so with the anti-venom suit he gets in the latter half of the game. If we include the symbiote suit, even if Batman had all of his Bat family, he'd still lose. He'd essentially need to call in the Justice League to help him fight this dude at this point. And while beating Bane is pretty impressive, Symbiote Spider-Man has been able to absolutely beat the shit out of Kraven, who should be on Bane's physical level. But at this point, I think it's pretty clear who wins. Spider-Man on a low ball either matches or outdoes Batman's best showings in every single way possible. Batman can't really beat him to death. Spider-Man can tank the equivalent of small nukes. He can't really outspeed him either, considering he moves at comparable speeds to Electro, who's just straight up a massively hypersonic character to possibly a lightning timer. You can't sneak him either, considering Spidey sends borders on precognition. And while Batman is most definitely a better combatant, none of that really matters when Spider-Man can just hit you with multiple tons more of force and is likely 100 times faster than you. And while Batman has fought his fair share of superhumans like Poison Ivy, who's been able to do similar stuff to Venom, she was only able to actually do that with prep time from Batman and a lot of assistance. Meanwhile, Venom did that ultra casually within the span of a few seconds. And while Killer Croc is very impressive, the Lizard is basically just him but way more physically imposing, faster, more durable, and with the regeneration factor. So with that being said, I think I'll leave that there. Spider-Man basically has this in the bag like 99% of the time, that 1% being a situation where he's probably asleep and Batman just sneaks him. If you agree with the verdict, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, I'd much appreciate it. Oh yeah, and on the reception for the last video, thanks, because I was not expecting that. Thanks to all the people who commented nice things, thanks for all the people who even commented not so nice things. I appreciate you all, and yeah, till next time.